So today I'll be continuing with my college football game by game prediction and roster discussion videos. Today I'll be doing the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Nebraska's recruiting has been improving under Matt Rule in 2024, which was Matt Rule's first full recruiting class at Nebraska. They had the 24th ranked recruiting class in the country. And in 2025, they had the 21st ranked recruiting class. Starting on the offensive side of the roster, Nebraska was terrible here last year. They averaged only 22.1 points per game. I expect them to be better offensively this year, but maybe not great yet. Dylan Raiola had a pretty good freshman season at quarterback. He had a 2,819 yards passing and completed a 67.1% of his passes. And his touchdown to interception ratio, though, was not very good. It was only 13 to 11, and his yards per throw average was not that good either at only 6.9. But I would expect him to throw for over 3,000 yards this season. And he's not a good runner at all, though. He's a complete statue. He had negative 65 yards rushing last season. And at wide receiver, I think Nebraska is going to be the best they've been in a long time. Ja'Cory Barney, a four-star wide receiver, played in all 13 games last year and only started 4 games, but had 55 catches for 447 yards. He didn't have any touchdowns, but I think he's going to have a big year this year. And they bring in two good transfer wide receivers. Dane Key from Kentucky is one of them. He's a senior wide receiver who was a 3-year starter at Kentucky. Last season, he had 47 catches for 715 yards and two touchdowns, averaging 15.2 a catch. And the other one is Isaiah Hunter from California, who had a good freshman season, a four-star wide receiver who had in 12 games of 40 catches for 578 and five touchdowns, averaging 14.4 a catch. And at running back, Emmett Johnson will be the starter. He's a pretty good running back, but not a great running back. But last year in 12 games, he had 598 and one touchdown on 117 carries, averaging 5.1 a carry. But he only started 5 games last year. But they don't really have any depth at running back to help him out. So that's a concerning position for Nebraska. But Nebraska, I think, is going to have the best offensive line they've had in a long time. It could possibly even be a great offensive line because they've got three starters coming back, and they brought in two really good transfers. They've got Justin Evans coming back, who only allowed 10 quarterback pressures last season, and they've got Gunnar Gatula, who played in 11 games and started 9 games last season, and only allowed 16 quarterback pressures. And they've got Henry Lutovsky, who played in 12 games and started 11 games. And I couldn't find his exact numbers, but he was a solid player for them. And they bring in Elijah Pritchett from Alabama, who that started 12 games for them last season. Now, he did give up 5 sacks and 29 total quarterback pressures, which was the worst on the team. But he's a five-star offensive lineman that I think with some good coaching is going to be great. And they bring in from Notre Dame Rocco Spindler, a four-star redshirt senior. He has played in 40 college games and started 26 college uh, games. And last season, he only allowed 1 sack and 8 total quarterback pressures. And defensively, Nebraska was very good last year. They only gave up on average at 17.2 points per game. But because they lose everybody on their defensive line from last season, including Ty Robinson, who was an elite player for them, who was off to the NFL. I expect that number to go up to at least 20 points per game allowed for this season. And on the defensive line, they didn't really do anything in the transfer portal to help with losing all of their starters. And at linebacker, they do lose their best one from last season, John Bullock, who is off to the NFL. But they do bring in a really good linebacker from Georgia Southern, Marquise Watson, a redshirt senior who's played in 49 college games and made 37 college starts. And in 25 games these past 2 seasons, he has had 242 tackles. He's a tackling machine. And at cornerback, they do return one of their two starting corners from last season. Sierra Wright, who had last year 39 tackles and 6 pass breakups and 2 interceptions, and one of those went for a touchdown and a sack and a forced fumble. And then safety, I think, is going to be the best position on their defense. Even though they do lose Isaac Gifford, who's off to the NFL, who was the best player on Nebraska's defense last year, they do return 3 good safeties. They've got Deshaun Singleton, who last year had 71 tackles and 3 pass breakups and an interception. And Malcolm Hartzog, who had last year 45 tackles and 4 interceptions and 4 pass breakups in 12 games. And Marcus Buford, who had last year 35 tackles and 5 pass breakups and an interception. I think Nebraska will be okay in the front seven and very good in the secondary and solid overall defensively. So now for the game by game predictions, starting with Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a team that's I think going to be bad this year. They're not very good offensively or defensively. It's a game that at this point Nebraska should win, and I think they will win. But I would not be surprised at all if this is a close game. And then uh, Akron, this should be an easy win for Nebraska. They should blow out Akron, and their second string should at least get to play the whole fourth quarter. And then they play some team called Houston Christian. This will be a big blowout win for Nebraska, like 40 to 50 points. Their second string will play the whole second half of this one. And then Michigan. So while I think Michigan is a clearly better team than Nebraska is, if you watched my Michigan video I did pick Nebraska to pull the upset on Michigan. The real reason for it is Nebraska. It seems like it's about time for them to get a big win because they haven't gotten one in so long, and they did almost upset Ohio State last season. And besides Michigan, the only other chance they would have to get a big win is on the road at Penn State, which I'll go ahead and tell you they're not winning because Penn State never loses to teams like Nebraska. But I do think this will be a close, low scoring game. And I'm only picking Nebraska because it's at Nebraska. If this was even on a neutral field, I would for sure take Michigan. And now Michigan State. This is a good matchup for Nebraska because Michigan State is going to be a passing team and Nebraska is going to be able to slow that down. And Michigan State doesn't have any run game to be able to take advantage of Nebraska's inexperience at their defensive line. And Michigan State, I think, is going to have a hard time stopping Raiola and his wide receivers. So I think Nebraska wins this one. And then on the road at Maryland, a team that to me is clearly heading in the wrong direction and I think is going to be making a coaching change after this season. Nebraska should win this one pretty easily. And on the road at Minnesota, I've got to go with a loss for this one because it's the second one of two road games in a row, and it's on a Friday at night against a team that I think is going to have a top 10 defense in the country this year. I think Nebraska's offense is going to struggle in this game, and Minnesota, I think, is going to be a good running team that's going to be able to take advantage of the inexperience on Nebraska's defensive line. But this will probably be a pretty close game. And now Northwestern. So this one, I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty close. Northwestern, I think, is better than Maryland is gonna be. They bring in Preston Stone from SMU at quarterback. He is the one that got benched for Kevin Jennings last year, but in 2023 with SMU, he had a good year. And Northwestern does have Aiden Hubbard coming back on the defensive line, who's one of the best in the Big Ten. But besides those two things, there's not really much to get excited about with Northwestern. I think this will be a win for Nebraska. And now USC. Nebraska's offense struggled a whole lot against USC's defensive coordinator, D'Anton Lynn's defense last year. And Nebraska did slow down at Jaden Mayava some last year, and they might be able to do that again. But Lincoln Riley, even though he's known more for his quarterbacks, his offense can beat you in the run game too, and that's what he did to Nebraska last year. And I think USC does that to them again this year. But it'll probably be a pretty close game. And now on the road at UCLA, similar quarterbacks, both were very highly recruited and didn't really have a five-star type of seasons. But I did leave you at UCLA is a better runner than Raiola is at Nebraska. And Nebraska, though, has a better wide receiver room and offensive line than UCLA does. But UCLA, having looked at their roster, I think is gonna have a pretty good secondary too, and they've got more experience in the front seven of the defense than Nebraska does. And even though I think Nebraska's a better team than UCLA, it's not by so much that with the game being at UCLA, for me to think that UCLA couldn't win this game, and I think UCLA does win this game in a close one. They did upset Nebraska last year, and now on the road at Penn State, lost. Penn State's offensive line and running backs, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, are going to be able to take advantage of Nebraska's inexperienced defensive line, and I think run for a bunch of yards in this game, even if Disaster Aller is slowed down by Nebraska's second dairy. And Penn State's secondary is even better than Nebraska's is. They'll slow down Raiola and his wide receivers too, I think. And now Iowa. Nebraska has a better offensive line than Iowa does, but Iowa has a much better defensive line. But Nebraska, I think's better at linebacker because Iowa loses two really good linebackers, and Iowa is pretty good in the secondary too. But Nebraska has a better quarterback and a much better wide receiver room. Iowa's terrible at wide receiver, always. And I think that this will be a very close defensive game like it always is. But with the game being at home, I think Nebraska beats Iowa this time. My prediction for Nebraska is 8-4 overall and 5-4 in the conference. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe, and I'll be back soon.